Welcome, residents, to the Dr. DC podcast. My name is producer Richard, and across from me is the Doctor himself.
Hello.
Each week, we talk about the weird and wonderful world of DC while fielding questions from listeners like you. I've already done that one.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm so much on Star Trek brain.
I know, very much in Star Trek brain.
If you don't know why we're in Star Trek brain, it's because, one, we're talking from the future, because the episode that we are going to be... it's too much time.
There's an episode coming out on Friday that we've already recorded.
Yeah.
On the Patreon for our subscribers.
Oh,
where we talk about
Star Trek.
And
Well,
in
it's just,
general.
no, in general.
It's just Star Trek in general.
Yeah, we do like a Star Trek retrospective going into Discovery. Speaking of retrospective, that book that I got.
Jesus. Holy shit. You got the 75 years of DC Comics, the art of modern myth making, that massive tome.
It's 20 pounds.
It's crazy. This is bigger than the Book of the Dead.
Yeah.
It's bigger than the Necronomicon.
Yeah, don't read from it.
Yeah, it's massive.
And it's basically a retrospective of DC broken down into all of the ages.
But there's stuff about the characters, about the creators, about costumes, about artwork.
You see artwork in there in like pristine condition that was photographed. So they find basically the best possible like version of a book that's out there, and they get a photo of it. So you really get to see the artwork as like the best possible.
It's a crazy tome. I'm not gonna lie. I'm pretty jealous that you have that.
Yeah, my wife just like she was like, "There's something in the mail coming. Like, can you see?" And I was just like, "Yeah, sure." And it's always a question of, is it for her or is it for her and me?
Right.
Never just for me.
Yeah.
And so she'll randomly make orders sometimes, and so it's always is this going to be clothes for her or something for me or something for the house?
Yeah.
No fun.
Something we need for life.
Ugh. So and so it was funny. So this happened with this. You know where they say they come to your mailbox, but then and they leave a slip, but then there's no slip there.
Yeah,
it's exhausting. So that happened on Thursday. And so it happened on Wednesday, and then I went there Thursday, and because the Canada Post is so understaffed, they were like, "Oh, and for some reason, everybody's ordering right now. Like normally they get 150 packages a day.
Sure.
This one day they got 600.
Jesus.
So for some reason, everybody was buying stuff.
Like for Easter?
That's what I was like for Easter. She's like, I don't know. It could have been the cold snap that recently happened, or it could have just been that like spring is coming, and so everybody's doing all their like buying so they can enjoy spring. I don't
Crazy
know.
shit.
Yeah. So basically, they were like, "Yeah, you're not gonna be able to get your package on Thursday," and so I was like, "Well, fuck, Friday's a holiday," so I had to wait till yesterday, Saturday to go and get it. So and so. It was funny because my wife's like, it's going to be like a medium-sized Amazon box. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? And so then I like pick it up. I'm like, oh my God, why is it so heavy? What did she order?
Why did you get me lead?
Yeah, it was weird. Not opening it up to not realize that it's the fucking raddest like 75th anniversary. And there's not going to be like, you're not getting another one of those books coming out.
I'm very jealous of that.
And it's from a company called Taschen, which they do a lot of these sort of like large scale coffee table books. Yeah. They did a really good one. We have another one here that's like the history of LA. That's really cool.
Nice.
And so we knew we could trust that book, and it's basically laid out like an art book with, instead of just being like volumes, just like pages of text, it's more about sort of focus on the artwork and then information about that piece. So treating it DC like art, which is really an awesome way to kind of do it. Maybe if we get to enough reviews, we can use that book as part of the episode.
Otherwise, we refuse to do research involving this book.
No, fuck you. I'm never looking at it again.
All speculation.
Oh, never again. I won't do anything more. I guess you want to... We have a review.
We do.
We have a review.
It counts.
It counts. It's not technically an iTunes review, but at this point, we just are trying to get to this point.
Well, no, but also just, someone left us a review somewhere. That's nice.
Yes, it's true. So we have a review on Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Which apparently is a thing you can do.
I didn't realize. I'm glad that we have at least one positive and no negative, I don't think.
No negative.
Stephen Marion, Almagro. Sure. I'm not going to.
We'll fix it in post.
Yeah. In post, it's Stephen Marion Almagro. That's how I fixed it. Roland Saber.
So many people have the same voice.
It's a slight difference.
It's not.
No, you just don't have the ear for it. It's okay.
Neither do you.
I've got everything for it. Who recommends the Dr. DC podcast? He writes, I was looking for a good podcast and was lucky to find the perfect one. Oh, the perfect one. And that was not Dr. DC.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, wait.
And they recommended Dr. DC podcast. These guys are hilarious. I listen to the podcast while working and I grin like an idiot because of the witty quips. Not from me. The doctor is also clearly well versed in the world of DC. More power to this show. P.S. I demand an episode that the doctor and producer Richard speak in that Michael Caine voice all throughout.
Subscribe to our Patreon.
Yeah, friend, you don't even realize how right you were.
Double Dose number 2 is our full pitch
right.
for Alfred Begins.
That's right, Steven. So get on the double dose. Yeah. It's only $5 a month. And you at least get the one thing you wanted. So if nothing more, pay for it 1 month and listen to that episode and, you know, you don't have to
give people that option.
And also buy our merch.
There's an Alfred Did It t-shirt up there.
That's right. That's true. You can buy that merch if you really like that.
Right,
yeah. But yes, so we got the review. Make sure to keep coming with those reviews. We're getting close.
We're getting there.
We're getting real close. Only a few left.
When we do that video episode, we can actually do an episode about artwork because we'll be able to use the visual medium.
Who'd have thunk it?
Yeah. I mean, we'll also release it as audio too, but...
Don't worry, we'll wear masks of our face if that's the thing that's impeding this.
Yeah. Like Point Break, we'll wear like old presidents.
Did you see the movie Drive? Or Driver, Baby Driver?
Baby Driver, yeah.
Yeah, when they have like the masks on and they were like saying you have to do like the Mike Myers masks.
Yeah. I do love that movie.
And he wears like the like shagadelic Mike Myers
It's the wrong Mike Myers.
So good.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. All right, let's we got a few pieces. We didn't have much last week, but we made up for it this week because we got some dope pieces of news this week.
Let's do it.
First.
Oh, wait, sorry.
It's really not necessary. I did it once.
I disagree.
And you seem to think that it's the thing that
It's the only thing that survived from the first 4 episodes of the show.
This is really just,
Other than answering questions, it's the only piece of the show that survived.
really like Dr. DC podcast, like episode 60 on, is really the Star Trek Discovery of Dr. DC podcast, where it references things that happened in the first few episodes, but like I think really elevates
the first 4 episodes are like watching the Gorn fight, where it's like it's like part of where it comes from, but like it's not good.
No, God, no. If anything, if you want someone to get into this podcast, don't listen to those four episodes.
We got a review once that was like, I'm glad I was listening in reverse order, because if I had started there, I wouldn't have.
Yeah, we're not one of those podcasts. It's not a continual storyline. There's just start in where and listen to the types.
That's part of the beauty. Just bomb in for the themes you like, or listen to every episode, but just don't listen to those ones.
I usually listen to
or listen to those ones when you're firmly like a fan already.
Yeah. It's really the Patreon episode where you get the continuous storyline. So that's when you want to like every episode.
There's a real arc.
Yeah,
in our Patreon.
Really.
Episodes.
I mean, you should see the character work that the Doctor's doing. Really cool.
Fucking dial talk. We brought some dial talk characters to life too.
Really showing the dynamics of your acting range.
Hilarious consequences.
Oh yeah. Oof. All right. First piece of news.
Ministro. It's just a little taste. Subscribe to our Patreon.
Yeah, just a little super.
We've been doing a big Patreon plug at the top of this episode.
I know. Yeah.
All right, sorry. News.
We're heading into the poverty range right now. Shazam! Crosses $100 million at the domestic box office.
Yeah, which is awesome.
Which also for a superhero movie is amazing because generally they do, especially DC lately, has done a lot better overseas than it has domestically.
I mean, so
30 million is usually where you kind of sit. So
Aquaman did
okay domestically.
It crossed 300 million or something domestically, and it ended up at like $1 billion. So it did really well worldwide. we've already talked about it. Shazam is not that kind of movie anyway.
No.
So crossing 100 million domestic is awesome.
Yeah.
That's dope. Like I'm not sure I'm good enough at the math to sort of estimate where I think it'll end up, but maybe in like the 6 range.
Yeah.
Kind of like, I think you said kind of like Ant-Man maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
Something like that.
But I think with what is going to be looked on a lot better than Ant-Man did. I think Ant-Man's that was a movie. I think this is going to be
doing
like
something a bit different, and it was made for less money.
Yeah,
like its margin is different too. So
it's awesome.
But yeah, I mean, we already know we're going to get more Shazam, so like it's already a success. Now everything it's just gravy now that it's making money. I'm glad. It also means more people are seeing it, which is awesome.
Yeah.
We want people to see it because cool character, great movie, fun story. Yeah.
Next piece of news. Now, I think the piece of news itself isn't good, but it brings up into some interesting stuff.
Okay.
Titans season 2 set video reveals first look at Ian Glenn as Bruce Wayne.
Right.
Now, there's nothing really interesting about that. It's not like he came out with like a goatee or anything, and you're just like, well, that's not my Bruce Wayne. he looks like Ian Glenn being Bruce Wayne. That's fine. Well, what's interesting though is that one. Clearly, it's a speaking role. It's not a flashback because you get to see adult Dick Grayson. Yeah. So he's actually going to be more of a significant character, and I think that's what's more interesting.
Which is the thing that we sort of talked about when he got cast, which is that I think it's important for Dick's development to becoming Nightwing.
Yeah,
that he has some sort of even partial reconciliation with Bruce.
Well, how is he getting his costume even? Like, you know what I mean?
Even that aside, though, where did we leave off with Dick in season 1? Is he's given this horrible dark vision by Trigon of the worst things that he sees in Bruce. So even for his own sake, just being like I need to get like the real Bruce back in my life to get that out of my head.
He needs to come to terms with his relationship with him. I think.
Exactly. So I think we knew that was going to be important, and I think Ian Glenn is probably more likely cast as Bruce Wayne than Batman. I'd be surprised really if we saw much more of Batman in season 2 than season 1.
Yeah,
I think we're there to see Bruce.
I think it's
for the relationship.
I think it's important that we don't really get much Batman in it because I think that it can very easily become too Batman focused because obviously that's the like shining light in DC, and it's if you start giving too much focus to that, that's all people are going to want.
That's the danger.
Yeah. So I think that having him as the sort of mentor Bruce Wayne sort of role, I think that's going to be really valuable, and you're going to get a lot more character development through that.
Yeah, I agree.
And so for me, that it was a really good sign to see that, and all it was a shot of them walking and talking from in a hallway into a room.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much to that shot,
but I think that it says a lot about what we're getting with that character, and it sort of it sort of tempers a lot of the fear that I had.
Totally.
So yeah, I thought that was good. Speaking of Batman, Gotham series finale photos reveal the first look at Penguin and Riddler, and
in like full costume.
And wow, they went for it.
Penguin's like rocking the purple.
Yeah, like they have the big sort of puffed out chest with the monocle and the purple outfit, and Riddler's in the they were the very quintessential 70s 60s sort of.
Yeah, it's very inspired even from like the old Batman show.
Yeah,
like it looks like a very kind of modern, like I hate to use the word, but like
even
more realistic take on like Burgess Meredith's Penguin.
But only just vaguely. Barely. Like they really it's on the edge of Batman and Robin for me.
Yeah, it's very colorful, right? Like it's not just like, but in the real world he'd wear Kevlar.
No, yeah, that's what I mean. Like they are like.
Yeah,
I'm curious to know.
He's a personality. He's got like a flair, which is a thing that like in the first season was kind of woven in that like because he was working for Fish Mooney, he was sort of seeing like there's an element of theatrics to crime, and that was important. I thought for Penguin, so it's kind of cool to see and there's embrace that in the costumes.
And there's a mentorship of Penguin and Riddler, so you could see why Riddler would also kind of go along with that, and maybe it's you could then kind of draw the conclusion that them being some of the first sort of villains like that is why Gotham continues on that way, is they set a precedent for that's how you're a villain.
Totally.
But I'm kind of curious where like are they going to draw that line from how they become these costume sort of insanity, because they haven't I mean,
I saw
again,
another set photo of the mustache.
yes,
Gordon's got a
Yes.
mustache.
Yeah, Daddy gets a stash.
Yeah.
And Wolf. I mean,
Yeah. Mustache rides 10 cents. Am I right?
I'll pay him double, $10.
That's not double.
Yeah, it's more.
Yes.
It's the more that I've seen from this final season,
Yeah.
and there's a bunch of stuff that's come out this week that's not even worth getting into, but it's enough that I'm like, oh man, am I going to watch the last season of
Well,
Gotham?
I think I stand by what I said the last time, which is
You'll just watch the
I maybe we'll just watch like the time jump kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then if I'm into it, I might go back and just start in at season 3. I can't do season 2 because I hated it too much.
It'd be
But I'll
hilarious.
just start in at season 3 maybe.
It'd be hilarious that like suddenly they get super popular at the last season, and they're like, then we continued.
Well, yeah. I mean, I liked the idea initially of like they were shooting for the sky. Like we'll get 10 seasons, and
Yeah.
Batman will be in the last episode of the
Yeah.
10th season, and that's about the amount of time we need. But like that's. Like that's a lot of years without Batman, and even they realized it, right?
Yeah.
So I think this is probably about it.
And which season are they at now?
This is 5, and that's the end.
It's half of what they initially.
But I think it's more realistic. They probably should have shot for that anyway.
Yeah, I mean, you still watch some of the mini doc stuff from when they right before the first season showed up, but it was interesting that like a lot of the good thought went into it. Just interesting to see like what happened after.
I know the show took a huge right turn, but yeah, I think I'm gonna watch the time jump stuff because I kind of want to see like where does this Gotham end up? Like where is the comic book?
Yeah,
And then maybe I'll go back and be like, okay, I'll give like Ra's al Ghul a go and like stuff like that from the earlier seasons.
totally. So now we're getting the first Krypton season 2 trailer, which I have not watched.
It is so cool.
I'm gonna watch it right
Oh
now.
my god,
I'm gonna watch it right now.
that trailer is so dope. Krypton doesn't get that much like love. People don't talk about it enough. It is a good show.
I really couldn't get through the first season.
I fucking like that show, man.
I need to try it again.
Zod, Doomsday, Brainiac, and Lobo all in that trailer.
And that might be the thing that pulls me in. For me, it was too disconnected from the DC for me to
Right.
get into it.
Doomsday looks amazing.
Fucking Doomsday's terrifying.
That's maybe the best looking Doomsday I've ever seen.
yeah,
Including animated.
yeah. That's what I mean. Like,
it's
it's actually like a menacing version of it.
yeah. Do you remember that Smallville Doomsday?
Jesus Christ, Smallville does so many things right up until season 5. So Lobo, I don't know.
I'm excited. I'm there for that, man.
It's such a departure from the rest of that show.
And you only get to hear him say, "Name's Lobo."
Yeah.
They kind of made him. Makes me think of like Merle on The Walking Dead,
It's a bit of like a dirtbag. Yeah,
which is Lobo.
yeah.
So I'm kind of excited for it. I'm looking forward to it.
I will try. I'll try.
I really love the guy who plays Zod on that show though too. And
Yeah, he's good.
There's a ton to like, man. Like
It's true. It definitely looks better than season 1.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious to see where that's going. Moving on, we finally get sort of what John Cena's role is going to be in.
well, is the
Suicide
rumor
Squad.
that he's going to be Peacemaker? Is that it?
So a long time, yeah. It's basically Christopher Smith, aka Peacemaker.
Yeah.
Which I don't know anything about.
Is it confirmed?
Casting rumors have surfaced.
Because I knew they were looking at him, and they said they were looking at him for the role that Gunn originally wanted Dave Bautista for. So he's clearly looking for like a particular type. But if
It's enough that like
it is Peacemaker, that is a character from Charlton Comics, aka Earth 4.
Charlton Comics.
That's the same like group of characters. That's where the Question comes from. That's where Blue Beetle comes from. In Watchmen,
Which they reference in that book, by the way.
in Watchmen, the version of Peacemaker is the comedian.
Okay.
That's who the comedian's based on, is Peacemaker. Basically, if you were going to make a tagline, it's that he he wants peace so much he'll kill for it or something like that. He's sort of like this amoral government kind of agent. In Grant Morrison's Pax Americana, which takes place on Earth 4 during the multiversity, Peacemaker kills the president and like shit, like it kind of goes rogue and stuff like that. So having Peacemaker on the Suicide Squad is pretty interesting.
Oh, also, totally just a rumor, but on the subject of Suicide Squad, more rumors have come out that apparently the next Rocksteady game is going to be a Suicide Squad game.
Saw that.
Yeah.
Which makes sense because don't they set that up at the end of Origins
They
that
do.
Waller comes to like recruit Deathstroke or something like that? I'd be into that.
I know. I don't know how you would play that. It might be in like a Grand Theft Auto sort of thing where you can switch between the characters, maybe.
Oh fuck!
Right?
I'll be Boomerang.
Yeah, that's right. You're fucking Jesus Christ. Yeah, you're playing. You've been playing Grand Theft Auto, haven't you? The new one.
I've been playing GTA 5.
Yeah. So you get it.
Yeah, I'll be Boomerang.
It's just yep. You keep saying it, but it's not getting anything more than I want.
Or Harley.
I'm sorry.
Mr. J.
Mr. J.
But our fucking live episode. Watching you, the two of you slowly try to do the Harley voice.
Me and Gabrus?
Yeah.
Both of us masters of impressions.
Yeah, obviously. Unless it's a fucking Long Island Harley, maybe. Next piece of news. A little bit about Shazam, the sequel.
Yeah.
Henry Gayden, who wrote the original, the most recent Shazam movie, is going to be writing the sequel as well.
Yep.
Which isn't gigantic news, but I think that it's a good first sign that we're going to get more of what we
More
like.
of what worked.
Yeah,
you know?
Which I always makes me happy. I think
not change for change's sake or anything.
I think directing isn't always as important as writing and acting. Depending, I mean, but because a lot of the time the director it
really depends on the project, but I know what you mean. Yeah.
I think that like if they change the writer, I'd be more concerned because then you're really getting a tone like a complete change on potentially getting a complete change on the way that the characters work.
I guess I don't know that I 100% agree, but I think it would worry me more if they changed the director because, like, even with the same script, you could make that first Shazam movie. Like, I mean, there's elements of that Shazam movie that even we feel were like a little incongruous.
Yeah.
You know, you don't even have to change the script that much, but you could make that movie scary.
Yeah,
like all the way through.
It's true.
You know what I mean?
True.
Like
it's true. Yeah. I think it's definitely a good first step. It's an important first step that makes me go, okay, it's gonna at least like.
It just means we recognize what worked. We know that something special is happening here. Let's not mess with it.
But it's good because it's not like, oh, this wasn't as successful as blank, blank, blank. It's going for what this is. Yeah. I hope that they just they keep going. Okay, let's keep it at the same budget. Let's keep like it's not.
I think that's why, and they got and with Birds of Prey too. You know, it's rated R. It's a lower budget. It's a different type of movie. I think they're beyond just like the tones. I think they're realizing like not all of these have to be the same beast, right? Like this can be a smaller market, more contained story. This can be a big, you know, Aquaman is going to be a big fantasy epic. And like, then this thing over here is going to do something like, I think they're more willing to explore those ideas that like, not only tonally do they not need to feel the same, but like just in terms of filmmaking, they don't have to all be the same type of movie.
They don't have to be Marvel. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons that DC's learned over the last 10 years. And I'm glad that they're finally
learning it.
Yeah, it's good. All right, and the last piece of news, another thing that I have not watched, and I'm excited to do so now, which is the official Swamp Thing trailer has.
That's right, the teaser,
which I'm up for. Oh my god, that was it. Oh my god,
yeah, just a teaser, but the look very comic accurate, but also very much like in the horror kind of feel. Which is good. I mean, we already knew they were going to draw a lot from the Alan Moore run and things like that, because we know there's going to be like an anatomy lesson type episode. There was a little bit of controversy about the Swamp Thing series, so that they were initially ordered for 13 episodes, and they very abruptly like shut down production, and they're sort of jigging it so it's only 10 episodes. And then people were like, the DC Universe service is failing or whatever. And they had to come out and be like, it's not, it's actually doing better than we thought it would. we're just doing something different with this show. We're not canceling other things. We're not like things are going well. We have more subscribers than we thought we would. We're just changing something here.
Yeah.
I think it's just like an artistic thing as opposed to like
What
a business thing.
What I'm wondering is if maybe
But it was odd to like very immediately and abruptly shut down production and change the ending of a season and make them sort of rejig all this shit.
I'm just wondering if maybe they got to that point, realized that like they were going, they got to a finale and kept going, and maybe they just needed to stop it where it was at.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, we'll have to wait and see when it comes out, but it comes out at the end of May. So very, very shortly we'll be able to check.
I'm fine with that stuff. I don't hold much weight to that kind of production like stuff anymore because like with people talk about reshoots and it doesn't. I
think it was it was just such like a shock. It just happened very like abruptly, and because it's DC, everyone's just like waiting for like them to circle the drain. They were like, oh, it's all going down.
Suicide Squad all over again.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody knows how to cut this movie together.
Yeah, exactly.
For me, it's I don't start seeing red until there's a lot more.
Yeah.
This isn't enough for me. This makes me just go, oh, they just wanted to make a better thing, and
I'm excited. I'm still pumped.
Even just that first shot, I think
because not only do we get Swamp Thing in here, and we get the Floronic Man because we know that they were cast.
Yeah.
We get Abby Arcane. She's a main character, which means we'll probably get Anton Arcane at some point, his arch enemy.
Yeah.
We also know that Ian Ziering is playing Blue Devil. So like we're wading into like the magic, the occult like side of DC in this one.
I hope
Doom Patrol gets weird crap, Titans gets superheroes, Swamp Thing gets
magic,
magic
occult,
and demon and that kind of thing.
Which I hope they just go real dark.
I do too.
I think like if Titans is as dark as it is, this should be more so.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I think this is where you get that opportunity.
Yeah.
I'm on board. I'm in it.
I'm excited.
All right. Well, now we get to talk. Speaking of first time seeing something,
You're so good at that.
I know. The theme for this episode is first appearances.
Yeah, I thought it would be just like a way to flip the script a little bit. So we're talking about the first time that characters show up,
which we just saw for the first time. Swamp Thing. Now we get to hear about all of these. I mean, that's one of the great things about that DC Comics book is you get to see sort of the like the Wiz comics and the action comics and see really like.
I actually looked back through my collection. I've got more first appearances than I thought I did.
Really? Wow.
I mean, part of that
reprints, but yeah.
No, like actual ones.
Wow.
There's a couple that are like really cool to me.
Yeah.
And then there are some that are like, they're kind of like, especially with modern comics, it's like, I've got technically a ton of first appearances, but whether or not these characters ever show up again or are important down the line is yet to be seen.
Yeah.
Like for example, like Deadwater or Mr. Bloom, like some of these villain characters that are pretty recent, they've only kind of cropped up in an arc or two. 20 years down the line, that might be all they've ever been in, and it's not that important. Or they could become huge.
Yeah.
Who knows? Godspeed, like stuff, all those kind of things.
Which was just showed up?
Just showed up in the Flash show. Godspeed's a little bit different because he's already more of a character than Deadwater. But some of the first appearances that I have the first appearance of Cyborg, Raven, and Starfire, which is in a backup feature in DC Comics Presents number 26. It was the first appearance of the new Teen Titans.
Yes.
So I've got their first appearance. I've got the first appearance of Ragman number 1.
Ooh.
I have the first appearance of the Anti-Monitor, actually thanks to Stump Shunkman.
Step into the stone.
Crisis on Infinite Earths number 6. I have the first appearance of Freedom Beast, who was the successor to B'wana Beast. That's in Animal Man 13. And then the one that
it was actually originally French Beast, but they changed it.
Oh, that joke would have killed in 2003.
I know. That's right. That's where I lay, man.
The one that is like the real cool one to me that my parents got me years ago as a gift is
Superman.
Oh, fuck. Flash 139, which is the first appearance of Reverse Flash, the first appearance of Eobard Thawne.
I like that.
Yeah. Which is pretty dope.
Get some dope shit.
Yeah.
Good for you.
I don't have a ton of that because that's not the type of collector I am, but like I've got a couple of cool things in there. But yeah, just thought I would mention that off the top because I was like, first appearances, like, fuck, do I even have any? And I was like, oh yeah, I do.
Yeah.
There's a fair number in there, but
So cool.
right.
Yeah.
That's why I'm the type. No, I mean, the people that listen to this podcast undoubtedly have more
Yes.
cool key issues than I do. It's just not the type of collector I am. Like, I've never spent more than like $15 on a comic book.
No, you're-
'Cause that's, if other people get them for me, that's lovely. Like, I've gotten some as gifts, but it's just not who I am.
No, yours is more. You're
There's
more
a
about
couple
getting
that-
stuff that you like, right? Like,
Yeah, and part of it is like I want to read them too, and at a certain point, if I have to pay a certain amount, then I'll get the anxiety about like maybe I shouldn't be reading it, and then it's not fun for me anymore.
no.
So there are a couple of things that I kind of have my
More
eye on.
protective of over too, and
Well, there's ones that I like. I think I would maybe just buy to get them to have them. Like I think
it's important.
I think I want the first Black Manta.
oh,
I think that's one that I want. I have the issue where he takes the helmet off for the first time, but I think I'd like his first appearance. That's one that I sort of have my eye on.
I mean, Aquaman's your boy. So
Well, yeah, exactly, right?
exactly. All right. Well, we got a ton of questions, so much so that we could record this episode early.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So let's get into the Facebook.
Going to the face and the book, going to the Facebook.
First question comes from our old friend Chicken Maddie.
Hey, Matt Poulter.
That's right. I don't know. That's fine.
Oh, sorry, Chicken Matt.
Thank you. Who asks, which character do you think has changed the most since their first appearance? Which has changed the least?
I mean, they've all changed a bit. And part of that is a function of people retconning. You know, like, there's always, if a character's been around long enough, eventually someone's going to be like, oh,
They actually did this.
yeah, it's like this thing that you thought happened was really, that's always going to happen. So no one is identical to their first
Well, also,
appearance.
a lot of time, first appearances are just like, oh, this is an idea for a character.
You're testing something out.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it's
So-
like, oh, people like this. Let's flesh it out.
One that's very different that I thought about that I wanted to mention, speaking of Aquaman, is Ocean Master. First appearance of Ocean Master is in like Aquaman 26 or something like that, back in the 60s, 50s or 60s. And in his first appearance, he is Arthur's half-brother, but the opposite way. He's fully human.
Oh, really?
He is not Atlantean at all and can't breathe underwater.
Oh.
He like needs an outfit in that. But then I think in that first appearance, he has like a booby trapped whale or something, and he's like he's like blowing up ships or some shit like that. But he's fully human, and he's like jealous that he's not
Oh.
like Arthur, which is obviously the opposite of how he is now, where he's fully Atlantean.
And it's kind of what they did with Black Manta.
And in a way more rightfully the king than Arthur is.
Yeah.
At least in Atlantean eyes, you know? So I just thought that was kind of interesting that it was like the complete opposite. But the idea that he's a half-brother was in there, but he was just, yeah, he was fully human as
Oh,
opposed to
wow.
fully Atlantean. It's weird that flipped. Mm-hmm. Maybe it is because they thought it was too similar to Black Manta or something like
Yeah.
that. But that's one that's a pretty big departure. Another one would be like Animal Man. Animal Man's first appearance. I might not remember the actual numbers of all of these things, but it's in Strange Adventures 185 or something like that. And when he first appeared, this alien ship crashes and he's exposed to radiation, and then he gains animal powers.
Oh.
That was later retconned as he has a connection to the red. He's the champion of the red, like Swamp Thing is for the green. That was like kind of retconned as like the red was like, we don't trust you to be able to comprehend like really what you're a part of. So we just sort of like made up this vision of aliens so it made sense to you. That was like the retcon.
Yeah.
This thing that you thought happened was really this. But that's another one, right? Where like a sort of fundamental kind of element of like, where do his powers come from is different now than it was then.
I think that a great example of taking their biggest sort of like character point and completely changing it with Batman, who started out with sort of killing guys, shooting people, and then becomes the one thing that he doesn't do.
Yeah, they basically were just like, never mind.
Yeah.
Sweep.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the ones that has changed the least in
Superman?
is Superman in most ways, because, you know, the planet exploding, him being raised by the Kents,
Yeah.
The one thing that changes is they make the Kents a bit like younger. Like the Kents in Action Comics 1 are like old already,
yeah.
and then they raise this kid. But all of those things about him being Clark Kent and being mild mannered, and Lois is in there. Like Action Comics #1 is. Even if you read it now, it's not so different from Superman that you don't get it. Like
No,
it's pretty close. He didn't fly then, but like that's fine.
Yeah.
That one's pretty close. Weirdly, like untouched, considering how many issues of Superman there are and things like
And
that.
every time that you've seen an origin for him, it's always the exact same thing, and
They don't deviate too much from that.
which is really interesting.
Yeah, that's one that's weirdly.
I mean, obviously,
the same.
Captain Marvel and Shazam. I mean,
Yeah, that one. Well, we talked about that. So in the New 52, that Shazam is very different from the pre-Flashpoint Captain Marvel.
yeah.
But the pre-Flashpoint Captain Marvel hadn't necessarily changed too much from the old Fawcett Comics days. The way he was written was a little bit different, but like where he got his powers from, who Billy is, all that kind of stuff was relatively intact. But
New 52
it was more
is drastic change.
the thing with Captain Marvel was that it was more like his cast of supporting characters.
Yeah.
They got retconned around a bunch. That like sometimes the Lieutenant Marvels existed, sometimes they didn't. Sometimes Takitani was an actual tiger, sometimes he wasn't. Some like those characters
Yeah.
changed more than he did, I would say. But yeah, you're right. That one from Wiz Comics 2, that's the first appearance of Captain Marvel, relatively intact. Even, I mean, Batman, the difference is Detective Comics 27 is not an origin story. Like the Case of the Chemical Syndicate, which is the first Batman story, isn't his origin. His origin doesn't come for
But it's his
for a
first
few
appearance.
issues. But it's his first appearance. And yeah, you're right. The big difference there is that he's not just like kicking people into vats of acid. except for the Joker, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Let's go to the next question.
Let's do it.
Next one comes from Adam Upper.
I hardly know her.
Thank you. Who/what issue is your favorite first appearance?
Ooh. I think all-time favorite would be Swamp Thing.
Ooh.
First appearance of Swamp Thing. Well, I guess to tie it to the last question, the first appearance of Swamp Thing is in many ways not like Swamp Thing.
Yeah.
Because it's actually a different character. So House of Secrets 92, that's the first appearance of Swamp Thing, and it's a single story, and it's like Victorian era, and it's this guy named Alex Olson who is killed and sort of comes back as this swamp monster, and is sort of like, it's written very much like a sort of gothic horror. It feels like Mary Shelley or something like that. Like he's a very Frankenstein-y kind of character where he's sort of watching from the window, the woman that he loves, but he can't go to her. And then he sees that like the guy that killed him is going to go for her. And he sort of barges in and saves her, but she recoils. She's like afraid of him. And he just sort of like wanders off into the swamp, sad and alone. And that's the story. And it's very beautiful. It's very poetic. The artwork is really incredible. It's Len Wein and Bernie Wrightson that do that one. And that character, like the genesis of it, that like someone is killed in an accident, they come back as a swamp monster, they think they're a monster, like that carries over to Alec Holland when they make Swamp Thing. But that comic book, the Swamp Thing comic book, was made to be more superhero-y. And Alan Moore very smartly later on references Alex Olson as a previous Swamp Thing because the whole Avatar of the Green thing.
Yes.
So that original one, Alex Olson, it's very much just, it's like the story of Frankenstein's monster, right? It's about this guy, he wants to go back to how things were. He wants to be loved. But he's a monster. He's viewed that way, and he shovels off into the swamp, and he loses the locket that he had, or the bracelet or whatever. That was like his last connection to this woman. And he just sort of disappears. And yeah, it's very like melancholy. And I love that one. It's like a real piece of literature, like not to denigrate anything else in comic books, is obviously my whole thing here is comic books, but it's very like well written. It's very poetic.
Yeah.
It feels a little elevated, a little more sophisticated maybe than, which ended up being the tagline for the Swamp Thing comic book, was like sophisticated suspense.
Oh, yeah.
And during the Alan Moore era, it certainly is that too. But Yeah, I'd say that one's my favorite. Do you have a favorite?
I mean, I think that some of my favorites came from Batman the Animated Series.
Oh, sure.
Harley's obviously a great one.
Sure.
Understanding her sort of where she came from was really interesting. And then obviously, I think Nora Freeze.
Yeah.
I think
That's true. That would be a first appearance.
I think those have some amazing stories behind them, and I think I think that would be probably mine.
Yeah, totally.
All right, next from my favorite Time Remnant, Richard Waltmouth. Waltmouth.
You're always trying to do a thing.
It's just fun to say Waltmouth. You got something?
I almost tried to say it like walk. Like
Waltmouth. Waltmouth.
Richard Waltmouth.
Just wait for Friday, guys. It'll all come back.
Fuck.
Hope we're getting a whole bunch of new Patreon subscribers because if you think this is comedic gold, just you wait.
You did a whole episode of that voice.
That's true. That's true.
You sound like Philip Seymour Hoffman eating a marshmallow.
Oh, that's true. Oh, Richard Waltmouth. Oh,
I'm the torchbearer. Oh, the Klingon Empire. Today's a good day to die. Oh, it's such a good day to die.
oh, fucking! I'm gonna watch you die.
Perfect. I love it.
All right. Richard says, with Green Lantern, in your opinion, who was the best introduced?
Ooh, interesting. There are so many Green Lanterns.
Yes. You know who mine is. But.
Well, the introduction of Guy Gardner, his first appearance is a weird one because it's actually like an alternate history.
Yeah.
Like Hal is being showed that like it's through like is it called the memory machine or something? He's being showed like that Abinsur's ring chose him kind of because he was closer. But like Guy Gardner was also in the running. So like what would it have looked like if he had become the thing? And so he's seeing like an alternate version of how events might have played out.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a weird first appearance because like it didn't happen.
Yeah.
But that was then Guy Gardner is in there, like Hal meets him. He becomes like the backup lantern of Earth.
Mm-hmm.
The introduction of John Stewart, Green Lantern, happens during the Green Lantern Green Arrow run of comics. And because of that, very political. They don't get along. Like John Stewart in that era too was very like brash and aggressive. You know, like a protester, like someone who's like fighting for civil rights, you know,
yeah,
as he should be. He's very different from the John Stewart now, who's relatively like composed and disciplined and things like that. So that's kind of an interesting one, but is different from how he is now. Mm-hmm. But that's about character growth as opposed to really being like a retcon. I think for me, it's Kyle Rayner. Because Kyle Rayner's technical first appearance is in Green Lantern 48, the first issue of the Emerald Twilight arc that eventually leads to Hal becoming Parallax.
Yeah.
But you only see him and Alex like at the end, like kind of cameo style, I guess you'd call it. You could argue whether or not it's his first appearance. It definitely is, but
yeah,
we'll get into that. But basically in that issue, Hal is sort of grieving the destruction of Coast City and he tries to recreate it with a construct, but he runs out of juice. The Guardians say like, don't do that. Like come back for discipline. And he's like, fuck. And he basically leaves Earth and starts going to destroy the core, to take power for himself so he can recreate Coast City. And he like takes off. And then you see it's like Kyle and Alex like see this like shooting green star and like make a wish or something like that on it. And that's their first appearance. And then at the end of Green Lantern 50, when the core is destroyed and Hal is Parallax, the last Guardian shows up to Kyle and says, you're the last one. Like ordinarily there's a more rigorous choosing process, but like, here's a ring.
That's
like,
really fun.
You're it.
Yeah.
Like you're the torchbearer. You're the only one left.
Wow.
So I kind of like that because it's not like they set him up like a year earlier and they're like, this guy's going to be the thing.
No.
It was just like, we just drew someone here and it's only 3 issues away. They knew what they wanted to do with him, but it was like he just sees this thing, he's sort of disconnected from it, and it's sort of thrust upon him. I kind of like that idea of a first appearance where it's initially innocuous and then you come back to it and you're like, oh fuck, like yeah, he was there. I sort of like that.
Yeah, I like that too.
And especially given the circumstances, right? They're just like, we need someone.
Yeah.
Like it's not like how Hal was chosen or how John was chosen or Guy or anyone like that. It's a desperation move. And so I kind of like that.
I do too. All right. Let's leave Facebook and head on over to Twitter.
Twitter.
You okay?
That was a better version of that than I think I've done in a while.
Yeah, it's true. It was pretty solid. It was tight. Well, speaking about the debate and cameos, first question comes from Talking Superman, who asks, what do you think of situations where the first appearance is up for debate? I've heard some people claim Constantine made a cameo before Swamp Thing number 37. Personally, I don't think Office Boy should count as Jimmy Olsen in Action Comics number 6. And if Lois and Clark have a son named John in an imaginary tale, should that be considered the first appearance of Rebirth John?
Right. Yeah, so there's a lot in there. So let's talk about the Swamp Thing, the Constantine thing first. So yeah, Constantine's official first appearance is in Swamp Thing 37. But it's a sort of well-known fact that the artists like working on Swamp Thing just really desperately wanted to make a character that looked like Sting. They wanted it so bad. And Alan Moore was like, all right, let's make this guy and create a Constantine. But I think because of that, there's a character that kind of shows up who's sort of in Swamp Thing 25 or 26, who looks very much like Sting. Mm-hmm. There's another character also, again, unnamed, that shows up in, it's like called like DC Preview or something like that, like number 3. Also looks very much like Sting. So because they all kind of look like Sting, it's like, oh, is that Constantine? And
it's fun to think.
I think technically they aren't because, well, the DC Comics preview
they weren't written
one,
to be though.
The DC Comics preview one is a little bit different because that one, I think he's even kind of magical. That character who is unnamed. The Swamp Thing 25 one is just like a guy in a crowd.
I think unless they retcon it to be that, or they intended to be that from when they originally wrote it doesn't count.
And that's the exact thing, right? You know, if as soon as someone retcons it, then you can be like, yep, that's the first appearance.
Yeah.
But if that doesn't happen, then yeah, you have to go with the intention, right? And so the first time with intention is 37.
Yeah.
That is Swamp Thing's first appearance. Constantine's first appearance is in Swamp Thing 37. And as much as it's kind of a cheat, I think all it would take is for someone to make a reference to
Remember when I was there? Yeah.
To that 25, and now you've made the connection canonically, then that technically is it.
Is it still a little like weak? Sure.
Yes. It's absolutely
I think,
weak. And like from like the value of your comic perspective, 25 will never outpace 37 because 37 is explicitly Constantine and always was.
And it was an intent, I think, always trumps retconning.
And I think that also applies to the Jimmy Olsen thing. So there's a character called Office Boy in Action Comics number 6, who's blonde with a bow tie, and that's about it. He's listening through the door.
Yeah.
And then when Jimmy Olsen appears in Superman 13, he also has blonde hair
And a bow tie.
Well, and just a tie.
Oh, okay.
I think. But he looks very much like how they drew Office Boy. Now, I get why we wouldn't want to say that the Office Boy is Jimmy, because I don't think the intention was there that like this guy's going to be a part of this show. But I think like clearly when they were like, Jimmy, what does he do at the planet? It's like, oh, well, we kind of already drew someone that sort of does that. Let's just use that.
That's a little looser, I would say, because technically they're taking characters who are already in there.
I think I'm with Talking Superman on that one. Technically, that yeah, Action 6 you can't count as the first appearance of Jimmy Olsen, but I think the writers definitely made them the same character. But because they didn't have the intention when they made Action 6, like it's like I said, you can retcon it and that's fine. But like as far as your collector value, it's never going to. Action 6 is never going to outpace Superman 13. Superman 13 is explicitly the first time we saw Jimmy Olsen. Everything else is a retcon. So yeah, maybe technically Office Boy from Action 6 is Jimmy, but like that's not going to count for a collector or for anything like that.
I would say that's a tougher one, right? Because it's the same thing with like a TV show. It just like if someone's in the background and then suddenly becomes a main character in the next episode, technically it's still the same person.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, right? You know, like Miss Piggy shows up in the first episode of The Muppet Show as a chorus girl.
Yeah.
And has a different voice.
And so that's a different person then.
But next episode, they call her Miss Piggy. She's starting to do stuff. And,
if she has a different voice, I think it's a different...
But it's the same puppet. So is it just like, oh, people kind of like that puppet? Because I think the first sketch she's in is she's a chorus girl that keeps working her way to the front, which is kind of a core piece of Miss Piggy's personality.
Yeah.
So they didn't make her with the intention
of
her being like a central character for the show. But people liked it and responded to it, so they kept putting her in. And then she became Miss Piggy. So that's still her first appearance, even though the intention wasn't necessarily
So
there.
I think you could make a case, I think.
There is an argument to be made either way, and I know I'm kind of contradicting myself there.
Yeah. You could make a case for it. I think that if you use the same character model and it was just somebody they didn't name, then...
I think in my gut, I'm with Talking Superman about it.
Yeah.
But, you know... How many other Office Boys have we seen at the planet between Action 6 and Superman 13?
Yeah.
Did they all look like that? Or
that's the thing, right? Like,
you know, like that might be it. But I guess technically speaking, it's not the first appearance of Jimmy Olsen because they didn't give him a fucking name.
Maybe
it would count as a cameo, right? And we'll talk about this a little bit. Like cameos to me don't really count as first appearances unless you have, like, you see them fully. You know, like when it's someone in the shadows. This is the thing with the Anti-Monitor. He was sort of a shadowy character in some previous issues of Crisis, but his first appearance is Crisis 6, where you see him fully for the first time. You know, technically his hand is in there or whatever. Like we've seen Dr. Manhattan's hand or energy in DC Rebirth or things like that. But it's Doomsday Clock 7 where he makes his DC Universe debut because you actually see him.
Mm-hmm.
They're not just talking about him. So...
It's vague.
There are arguments to be made going either way.
Yeah.
And I would hate to be the arbitrator. As for the John one, that is an imaginary tale. And so many decades have passed in between that one is basically a different character, a different son named John. And clearly when they made this son, they were like, who do we name him after? There's one named John. What are they both based on? It's John Kent, Clark's father. Like, of
course he would do that.
There's very obvious logical reasons for the naming and things like that. Those ones, I think you can safely say that the Rebirth John Kent his first appearance is not that imaginary tale.
I would agree with that too.
Yeah.
All right. Next question comes from James Paulson, who asks, which initial origin story has stood the test of time the best? Which one, looking back, is now the most problematic?
Well, I mean, we've talked about it before. The most problematic one is obviously Tyrock in the Legion of Superheroes. Like a black character who wants segregation and all of his powers are like chant related.
Yes.
That's an issue.
Yep.
Now he's just a guy with like sonic powers, which is
by
fine.
the way, if like it would be an interesting thing that if DC like somehow like took that back and like I think that it would be a ballsy move for a movie to like try to take that back.
I think it's a bad idea.
I'm just saying.
What are you? But things are going so well for DC. Why would you wish this?
Why do you take a risk?
Why do it?
I don't know.
I mean, this stood the test of time. I mean, if we're talking about unchanged, then my answer from before with Superman and Action Comics #1 stands.
Yeah.
In terms of like maybe just rereading value, that Swamp Thing one is way up there. I'd say Wonder Woman in All-Star Comics #8. That one is pretty fun to read.
Yeah.
Still. Same with the first appearance of Flash, like Jay Garrick. In Flash Comics #1.
Obviously, I think like the one that seems to stand the best is Superman.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a pretty easy story to read too. Like that's
yeah.
I mean, it sounds like a cop out, right? But it kind of it hasn't changed too much. It's still good to read. He's a little like rougher with people than Superman now is. Like, there's some very clear, like, he's just straight up threatening people.
Yeah.
But they're bad guys, so who gives a shit?
Yeah, fuck them.
Yeah. The Green Arrow one, he like runs a car off the road. Just kind of like, oh.
Yeah.
There's a few things like that because the sensibility was different, right? You know, like, I guess maybe technically then those ones haven't aged so well. Captain Marvel, Wiz Comics, that one's, you know, it's hard not to like. And because Captain Marvel is so rooted in that like era, that golden age kind of like, holy moly sort of thing, it kind of survives a little bit because of that, I think.
I like that.
Yeah. Those are probably the best ones. I actually, do you know what? The Hawkman one. Hawkman's first appearance in Flash Comics #1. It sets up the reincarnation thing. It sets up Khufu and Shayera. You see Carter Hall. You see Hathset. You see.
That's insane that you're telling me one of the ones that holds up the best is the Hawks. Which is
I know, right? Because their history is so fucking like they've been fucked over so many times since. But like, what's the thing that we always come back to?
Yeah, it's
that
true.
Every retcon has tried to at least incorporate. Pretty much in some way is that one.
Yeah.
Which I think is a testament to like they were already on the right track with this story. Like, you fucked up when you made them aliens.
Yeah,
like,
it's true.
You should have just kept this.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I like that. All right. With that, the Dr. DC podcast will be back after this quick break.
This episode of the Dr. DC podcast is brought to you by thanks to our sponsor, Great Lakes Grooming Company. Today is a great day to
Shave.
They sent us a product.
Glory to the Empire.
Part of me likes beard oil. The other part of me does not have a beard and does not understand this concept.
I use the lip balm.
Yes.
So as Kalas embraces war, I can embrace those in my life.
Two things that Kailash approves of is peppermint and lime, both come in the lip balm.
I also use the styling cream. In times of peace, we grow our hair.
Vanquish your enemies with the power of pine. Drown them in the depths of tar.
Soap.
So,
Great Lakes Grooming is ready to use for warriors.
and for peace times.
Be the torchbearer for Great Lakes Grooming. It's made in Canada.
Canada. They are environmentally responsible, which is something that part of me cares for. And the other part cares nothing for.
It's almost as if you were two people.
Jacques,
Listeners, get 10% off Great Lakes Grooming Company's regular price products.
vanquish the price by taking 10% of it off.
Wade knee deep through the savings of your enemies using the promo code DC Podcast.
That's DC Podcast.
Kapla!
May you bathe in the blood of your enemies. Back to the show.
And we're back. I don't know what happened there, but
I'm sure it was gold.
I'm sure it must have been. Let's get on over to Instagram.
Now we're going to Instagram, take some questions and answer them.
First, we got a new resident here. This person sounds aggressive. Deep Space Killer.
Do you know who's the Deep Space Killer?
Vok
and
Kailash.
and Killy.
And Kelly. And Lorca.
Oh my god, you guys really need to be watching Star Trek Discovery.
Yeah, Deep Space Killer. Let's have it.
Who asks, Vixen's first appearance? Or actually, doesn't even ask, just exclaim, Vixen's first appearance.
Vixen, that character is Maria McCabe. She's the one who, she comes from a place in Africa called Zambezi, and she inherits this Tantu totem that magically connects her to the red, so she can gain animal powers, basically. Vixen's first appearance is kind of interesting because she was originally intended to be the first black female superhero to have her own series.
Oh, wow.
But then there's this thing called the DC implosion happened where like sales were down, a bunch of series got canceled. They basically like really like cut back. And that was in like the late 70s. And so her first appearance was like written and never released.
Oh, wow.
It was later released in a thing called Canceled Comics Cavalcade, as sort of like a look back. So her actual first appearance actually happened 4 or 5 years later in Action Comics 520 something.
Oh, cool.
And that was the actual first appearance of Vixen. So there's kind of, she almost, and she didn't even debut in her own series when she did debut, but there was going to be a thing, right? Just like it was for Black Lightning. But yeah, so Vixen is largely unchanged from that first appearance. She still has the Tantu totem. It's still like of African background. She has animal powers. She's kind of connected to the red. Bit of a retcon because the red wasn't fully a concept that was embraced yet. But yeah, I mean, she's relatively unchanged from that appearance. Her costume, her outfit has changed because they really made her look, I don't know. She just had this really kind of out there costume, but in a way, maybe it looked like more sort of African inspired. It might have been like more true to the character than her current costume, but her current costume is very sort of sleek and modern. But that's also because Maria McCabe is like a fashion icon. She's like a model. She has like, her new costume, I think, suits her very well, but her original costume looked very much like someone with animal powers, right? Had sort of streaks in her hair and kind of almost like a fur look and stuff like that. Like, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Next question comes from DJ Mal Brooks. I got the Spaceballs. I don't know. It's just Mel Brooks. I was trying to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the joke, but I don't know where you went.
DJ Mal Brooks. Space, balls.
The Inquisition. Let's begin. The Inquisition. Look out, Sin.
I like that the epitome of your DJing is wicka wicka wicka.
I listen to a lot of Will Smith.
Nice.
Now we're gonna party like it's night. We're gonna hold up. It is.
Nice. DJ Mal Brooks asks, is it more common for a character's first appearance to center solely on that new character, or do they usually make a first appearance in conjunction with an existing character before having their own arcs?
Well, I don't know that there's a usually to this.
I would say, like, classically, they were part of the sort of collection issues, the way that Action Comics and Detective Comics were.
Well, almost all comic books were like that, where they were anthologies. There were multiple stories.
So a lot of the original, at least, characters were started in those.
Yeah, you're right. So, for example, Action Comics #1 not only is the debut of Superman, but also Giovanni Zatara. That's his first appearance. Flash Comics #1, you get the origin of Jay Garrick, the first appearance of Jay Garrick. You get the first appearance of Hawkman. You get the first appearance of maybe Johnny Thunder in that one too. More Fun Comics was, I don't think they all debuted at the same time, but like that was a book where you ended up having a Dr. Fate story, a Green Arrow story, a Aquaman story. So they all kind of did that, but they weren't. It wasn't like Hawkman debuted in a Flash story.
No.
they were separate stories, just in one issue.
Yeah.
But the opposite is true of a lot of characters. So, for example, Vixen debuted in Action Comics. Action Comics by that point was firmly a Superman book. The Elongated Man debuted in Flash, like in a Flash story. There's the subsequent Green Lanterns debut in Green Lantern, but like those are HAL stories, and then you're introduced to these other guys. There's a lot of examples of both, and I would say, even in the modern age, maybe predominantly you're introduced in someone else's book and maybe spun out, just because of the business of comic books. But I can name characters from the last couple of years that debuted in their own series. So the Silencer, Honor Guest, that character debuted following the events of Dark Knight's Metal in her own series. Very cool character. An assassin that works for Leviathan, Talia al Ghul's organization. Damage, like the modern version of Damage, came out of that the same way, debuted in well, maybe Damage technically first appearance was during Metal, but same type of idea. We talked about it even in the 70s and 80s. Black Lightning debuted in his own book. It does go both ways, but I would say maybe in the modern era, if I have to pick usually, it's probably that you start in someone else's book and then you gain popularity and then you go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Jessica Cruz debuted in Justice League, became Power Ring for a bit, then became a Green Lantern, and then moved over to Green Lanterns, moved over to that series. So I think maybe that's the usual, but both still happen. There are people that still debut in their own books.
All right. Next question comes from Iceman Customs.
The Iceman Customs.
So Professor X, I know that the X-Jet could use some upgrades. So we know you're in a wheelchair. We've created wheelchair ramps all throughout.
Well, yeah. That's the thing that makes sense. I thought...
And then we put a TV on them.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
You got to pimp it out. Iceman Customs.
Hot, we have a wheelchair accessible hot
tub?
Hot tub.
Is that where we're going?
Yeah.
On the jet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, obviously.
Yeah.
Folds out. Yeah. It's got speakers.
Storm, why don't you come over and join me?
I'm sorry, what's...
I was trying to do Patrick Stewart. I can't do it.
I was just like... I'm like, Bane in X-Men?
I'm sorry.
Storm!
Yes, brother.
Volk!
That feels like one of those memes where it's like a picture of Patrick Stewart, but it says "You're a wizard, Harry."
Yeah.
Attributed to Gandalf.
Yeah.
That was the vocal equivalent.
I appreciate that. Iceman Customs asks, what are your top 5 appearances? So we kind of already addressed
first
this a little bit.
appearances?
Yeah.
So in no specific order, I'll include Swamp Thing in House of Secrets 92, Superman in Action Comics #1. I may have written notes so I don't forget things. Oh, Joker in Batman #1. That's a great first appearance.
Is it? Yeah.
That's a character where it's like right from the get-go, you're like, holy fuck.
Really? Yeah.
Even in like 1940 or whatever it was.
Wow.
That's a terrific first appearance. Wow. Joker is way up there. That's actually pretty tricky. I like the first appearance of Barry Allen.
Oh.
I like that one. That's in Showcase #4. I enjoy that one a lot. I don't actually like the Hal Jordan first appearance that much. It's not that interesting.
No.
Frankly. Yeah. Oh, geez. That's a real tough question. Holy shit.
Gnort.
I was going to go super modern. Probably Kate Kane, Batwoman. I like her first appearance.
Sandman.
Oh. Yeah. Dream.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's up there.
Right?
Oh, shit.
I know.
I mean, it's tough to pick, right? Because the other thing too is it's tough to divorce like what you think of the character or the series from just literally their first appearance. Because there's lots of characters I love, but their first appearance blows. Like, or vice versa.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
A character I wish went somewhere, but
Didn't.
because their first appearance is decent. Like, the Elongated Man first appearance isn't really anything to write home about. That Hawkman one's pretty cool. Yeah, Hawkman might be up there too.
For sure.
Is there any others that you'd throw in there?
Just the ones that I've already mentioned,
Yeah.
but that's not even comics. It's through the animated series. But
Sure, yeah.
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 All right. Also, I appreciate if you don't use the D word in this house. Divorce.
Oh, sorry. You're right. Yeah, I won't remind your wife that she was thinking about it.
Yeah. She doesn't need to know that's an option more than she already does. All right, we're leaving Instagram.
Well, you know, if you use the other D word more, you wouldn't have to worry about it.
I just used that in general. If I could just figure out how it worked.
Hey, you don't use it, you lose it.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
Also, use it too much to get hairy palms.
Is that what's happened?
It's a fine line.
Yeah, you just want stubble palms, really.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like a 5 o'clock
Yeah,
palm.
just use it a bit. 5 o'clock palm.
Leaving Instagram. Heading on over to Reddit.
Where everyone's nice and no one's ever mean.
That's correct. Everyone is super, super nice on there. First question comes from Never Say Die, Iron Joker 33. Who asks, which hero would have most benefited from debuting in a later age, i.e. silver instead of gold? Which modern character would be even more popular had they debuted earlier?
Ooh.
That's a great question.
That's a really tough question.
Right?
I mean, I guess technically
Into the tome.
the potential is that any character had the potential to be more popular if they'd been around longer. Because then there'd just be more of them.
Well, and there was less characters to compete with.
And less characters to compete with, right? You know, like
But who do you think didn't get their fair shake just because maybe there was characters similar to them already, like an Elongated Man versus Plastic Man kind of scenario?
well, I mean, at that time they were different companies.
Yeah.
Because Plastic Man was part of Quality Comics,
For
where
sure.
the Freedom Fighters were, and DC was like, "Oh yeah, stretchy guy." And they made
Yeah, or the fact
they
that-
probably also looked at Mr. Fantastic and they were like, "Oh, a stretchy guy."
Yeah, also just like if Marvel was doing something very similar.
I think you're right. Elongated Man, if he had come out earlier, probably would have been more popular because, yeah, he's sort of, even now, he's outshined
Well, even
by both Mr. Fantastic and Plastic
Well,
Man.
even what they're doing with Plastic Man on Flash, right? I mean, it's
Elongated
just
Man, yeah.
well, yeah, that's what I mean. But they're
they've
like kind of
made
taking
him-
tropes of both.
When they made him Plastic Man,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
Plastic Man's thing is that he is plastic.
Yeah.
Elongated Man is just stretchy.
Yes.
But Elongated Man on the Flash, they call him polymerized. Like,
Yes.
he is Plastic Man.
Exactly. So it's kind of a combination, especially when you start putting their personalities together. It's kind of both characters.
It is definitely. That's definitely one. I think it's probably based on that. It's like what powers were they not using enough? Like back then, like we talked about Vixen and Animal Man in this episode. Animal powers weren't necessarily like super used in the Justice Society days. You know, throwing that back there, maybe there would have been room for something like that. In terms of the other way around, a character that might have benefited from coming out later, maybe someone like Starman. I mean, there are many Starmen, and there are Silver Age versions. There's Legion versions. There are so many Starmen, and then there's a Starman tied. You know, the son of the original Golden Age one that was in the Justice Society. But that Ted Knight Starman is he's pretty overshadowed. Even in Justice Society stories, there's not a ton of Starman. You get a lot more Flash, Green Lantern, Dr. Fate, Hourman, you know, like the Spectre, like those characters all get a lot more to do than Starman does. Dr. Midnight. So possibly that Starman would have benefited from debuting later.
I think a prime example, due to how they were received and the issues behind it, Captain Marvel, I think that coming out in a different age would have potentially, I think that just because of like how little people knew about comic books, I don't think you would have had the legal issues that you would have had it.
I mean, right, because there would have been more. It might have protected it legally.
Yes.
But it couldn't have done better when it came out.
That's true.
Why the legal issues
But
ensued,
also,
because it was more popular than Superman or Batman. Captain Marvel was the shit.
For DC, I think it's the best case scenario because of how popular they were, and then they got a hold of it. But I think for the company that, I mean, they only got to really get that success for so long.
Right. Yes. I mean, in terms of them protecting their own thing, if it had come out later, there probably would have been less legal ground to stand on. Because we've talked about it. Like, the idea that that's a Superman ripoff is lunacy.
Yeah. But people
there were
just
so few characters.
And DC was so big, and they probably had the ability to kind of go, this is ours.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, yeah, not in terms of its popularity.
No, it was wildly popular.
Couldn't have been more popular.
That's why they grabbed it.
Yeah. Maybe you're right. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. All right. Next question comes from our other doctor. It's Dr. Hoot.
Dr. Hoot.
Hoot. Hooty Hoot.
Mr. Mime.
Every time.
Dr. Hoot.
Hoot Hoot. That just sounds like a Pokemon. It's Dr. Hoot.
It does, actually, yeah.
Dr. Hoot asks, in your opinion, what are the key ingredients for a successful first appearance? What makes you want to come back and read more?
Right. When you look back at the Golden and Silver Age in particular, there's a different formula than there is now.
Yeah.
Because storytelling was different, right? You had a lot more one and done comics. The modern age, there's also this idea of like, we don't want to reveal too much. We're going to like pepper things that like storytelling is different.
But do they also like in the modern age, do we still get the opportunity where there's a character sort of vaguely introduced and then people get them to come back? Or are they mostly intended to come back?
Well, I suppose that's part of it too. There's maybe not too many just shots in the dark.
Yeah. Or just like sort of like, we need a character that can do this and we'll just put them in here and they don't.
Yeah, I think even in the modern age, I would want to see maybe some of the ideas from the Golden and Silver Age, which is you're making an introduction. You don't necessarily have to show the origin of their powers, but that's sometimes a handy way of just getting to what are their powers. That's a key thing. We need to know, what can they do? I mean, obviously later on, they'll get retcons, they'll get more powers, they'll get different powers, but like just from the get-go, what can they do? Explain it.
Yeah.
What's their name?
Yeah.
And what's their setup? Do they have a family? Do they have a job? What are those? Those are the kind of the key ingredients, because that gives you like, where is this going? So, yep, I've got a family. Yep, I'm an actor. Yep, an alien ship crashed. Yep, I can do this now. There you go. Boom. Or you get, I'm a journalist and I'm trying to uncover this and I fell into a vat and then this happened to me and now I'm on this mission or something. That's that's the easiest way to do it to me. So as you're writing that, you need some way to display the powers.
Yeah.
Something about like what they're doing, that where they get their powers, they also have to then use them in that thing, just as a narrative device.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun when they discover things accidentally.
It's always my jam. I like that.
I think there's an element where if you get your powers from something radioactive going wrong, then you have to use whatever that new power is to stop the radioactivity from getting, you know what I mean? Like you're in the circumstance and you get both.
Yeah.
You become a superhero, you use your superpowers for the first time and you go, oh, maybe I can save more. Because that's the other thing is like, if you're making a superhero, for example, they need to also have the impetus to like keep doing it. That's the thing too, right?
So what are they?
Not that that's the only way to write a superhero, because of course it isn't. But like
those are at least a lot of the key
things that I
ingredients.
like in a lot of those first appearances that I like. It's all very cleanly set up, and you could do it back then too, because like people didn't give a shit about the writing. They were just like, okay. If they read dialogue where they were like, "Oh, it looks like my eyes can project a," then they went like, "Yeah, of course." I mean, now if someone wrote that, you'd be like, "This is a piece of shit."
Yeah.
So
different time.
Storytelling's a bit different, but like those elements are still in there, I think.
So what makes you want to come back and read more?
I think the flip side of that is you want to see or know what their powers are, but you don't want to see every potential application.
No.
Like if their power is very narrow, you don't want to be like, well, that's about all they could do.
Yeah, I want to see growth within the character, right? And expand upon
definitely personality. You want to see actual character growth, but I also want to see like them be creative, where it's like, okay, in this situation, they use their electricity powers this way. Next issue, where I give it another shot, I want to see them use their powers differently. I want the idea that it's not going to be the same setup all the time, or that they're only good for a certain kind of mission. So if you have electricity powers and the first time you use it to like short out a circuit and that opens the door and you escape, great. The next time, maybe use it to make like, magnetism, and then you draw something to you, or you take their gun away, like be like, okay, that's kind of cool. And then the next time you like, there should always be something you use it to like access digital information. Like in those first few issues, we should see some different applications so we can go like, okay, yeah, this character
can go a lot of places.
Useful in different situations. There's a lot of potential for what types of things they can work on. I think that's maybe what I would look for, because you're giving a chance, right? Be like, I like the first issue, let's see. And once you get through the first couple of issues, and you can show a couple of those different scenarios, then you go like, you either go, okay, I'm in, or you go, nah, maybe not for me. And then either that character never comes back again, or someone else gives it a different go. And with the same principle, like maybe I can reinvent this more interestingly or something. But
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's the same thing that I would have for just regular characters, whether they are first appearances or whatever. But in general, I think it's motivation and perspective, I think, are the things that pull me in the most, because there's a lot of characters with really cool abilities and not necessarily are interesting reads.
Totally.
Because there's just not enough depth to that. I mean, you look at Ragman, I mean, that first issue, like
there's a lot in there.
There's a lot in there, and it gives you a lot of perspective and motivation right from the get-go. And the power isn't even really fleshed out in that first issue.
Well, no, actually, in that series, it isn't, because he gets reinvented after Crisis, and that's when it becomes like Souls. That first one, it's just that like everyone was connected in that electricity, and he gets their power. And one was sort of smart this way, but like that idea of having the suit of Souls, that's a different version.
Exactly.
Basically.
But I think that, so it's really devoid from the actual abilities and more about the perspective and motivation from that character. And
Totally.
I think that generally is a thing that will bring me in and be more interesting. Because, I mean, again, I like Superman outside of his powers. I'm not that big of his abilities. It's more about what was his journey, what was his perspective, what is his motivation. I find that way more interesting. I think character development's more important to me than action. So.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
All right. Next question comes from Mad Seb 77. So crazy. So Seb. Also 77. That's there too.
I mean, that was great.
Yeah. That's what I'm here for. Just constantly knocking out those. Mad Seb asks, first appearance of Bat Cow. How, why, and will it ever be canon in the movies?
Oh, fuck. Yeah, Bat Cow. Okay, so this is from, I think it's Batman Incorporated.
They've got to do
and it's basically like Damian like saves this cow. Damian is obviously he's like raised as like a killer and shit like that. And it was a moment where I can't remember the circumstance, but for whatever reason he doesn't kill this cow or he protects it or something. And in the hair of the cow, it vaguely has a spot that looks like kind of like a bat. Like,
that's amazing.
And he takes it home, kind of makes it his pet, and he calls it Bat Cow.
I think in an age...
It's very cute.
In an age where Into the Spider-Verse exists, there is... I can't imagine a world where we don't eventually get a comedic Batman, Bat Family take.
There are a couple of Bat Cow missions in Lego Batman 3.
Well, there you go. I think that we are...
Will we see it live action? I mean, it's
I think
doubtful.
animated.
It's doubtful, but animated, definitely. I think you can see Bat Cow.
We are primed.
We're getting that fucking Super Pets movie. So, like, if they were like, oh, we already have too many dogs because we have Crypto, then maybe instead of Ace the Bat Hound, you get...
I think it's going to be
Bat Cow?
Included. I doubt it's going to be...
we're getting that movie, which I can't believe is happening.
Yeah.
But... Maybe.
Yeah, I mean,
I actually can't. I can't write it off. I can't say that it won't happen.
It's true. We're in a weird age for film and television where like anything is possible.
And we're also we're embracing more of the
Weird sides of
weird and fun stuff in comic books. So like maybe
someone better be making a comedic Bat Family animated movie. I really hope that that's on the dock. Like I hope someone saw Spider-Verse and were like, oh,
I think if I mean I know people have been talking about that, and there's obviously so many versions of Batman that like it would totally work. But I think because it's like dimensions in that, I'd rather see something with flashes.
I mean, that's cool.
Like
but
an animated thing with a ton of flashes.
just
the Accelerated
so-
Man and Jay Garrick and, you know.
That's really just copying Spider-Verse. I think that at least the Bat
know,
Family.
but I want it.
I know. But I just think that the Bat Family really sets up a really
Yes.
good opportunity for that. And so I think that would be a great example.
Well, there's already so many existing versions to
That's what I mean. Like it's just, and they already all kind of exist in one place. Like it's just there's so much fuel for a good comedic fire at that point.
true.
So, yeah.
Fucking Bat Cow. I'm pretty sure it's in an issue of Batman Incorporated. I might be wrong there.
That's amazing. I think that's a series that I'd be interested in reading.
It's kind of a neat one, yeah.
All right. The next question comes from a new resident. This goes so cray. The cray grows. The cray ghost.
Yeah, instead of the Gray Ghost.
Yes. This goes so cray.
Hey, what about this ghost? That shit cray.
That shit cray. What's
That ghost cray.
Yeah. What's the Kanye lyric?
That shit cray. The one
Yeah.
I
But
just
what's the
said?
next line? What's the?
What she order? Fish fillet.
Yeah. There we
That
go.
web so cool. This whole thing.
Thank you.
Act like you never seen him.
Okay. Well. Oh. All right. You know a lot.
Act like you never been around, motherfucker, like this again.
Okay. That's more than I thought you would have known.
Oh, I kind of love that jam.
I mean, apparently.
It's best friends in Paris.
Starts with one thing. I don't know why. Doesn't even matter how hard you try.
Lincoln Park.
Keep that in mind to design this rhyme to explain to due time all I know.
Time is a powerful thing.
Time is a valuable thing.
Watch fly
time
by as
the pendulum swings.
Watch it count
Down to the end of the day. The clock ticks slides away. It's so unreal.
Didn't look up below. Watch the time go right out the window. We have to stop now or we have to pay royalties.
That's true. Nobody's listening to this. Craig
Oh,
goes.
Chester.
He's in his final
He
betting.
would not have been pleased with that.
No, definitely not.
That's not what his wishes were.
You missed my joke. It was good.
Sorry?
I said he's in his final Beddington.
Oh, no.
Craig Ghost asks, Black Canary is a favorite. Wow, this is a long question. Okay. The Black Canary is a favorite of mine. She appeared in her iconic costume in 1947 and upstaged Johnny Thunder in his own co-feature, eventually supplanting him, according to the co-creator and legend Carmine Infantino. I recall Alan Scott dealing with a similar problem, but ultimately he came back around. Which DC character is your favorite who stole someone's thunder in their first appearance, and why? Ooh, there's a few examples of that.
Well, let's
in-
talk
in
about this
DC.
Black Canary one. So Johnny Thunder he's like a guy who says, say you, and then this Thunderbolt genie comes down and grants wishes, basically. It's kind of a cool concept, but it was like super poorly executed.
Yeah.
He made his first appearance in Flash Comics #1 as well, in his own like feature.
Yeah.
By the time you get to, I think it's Flash 86 is the first appearance of Black Canary. And yeah, so she debuts technically as a villain in Johnny Thunder, but you discover that she's actually undercover. She's doing like the Green Hornet thing where she pretends to be a bad guy to take down organizations from the inside. And people responded she didn't even have a power. She didn't even have a canary cry then. She was just a martial artist in a cool like biker uniform with fishnets, and everyone was like, Black Canary. And she was so popular that people were like, I think people were already kind of like, Johnny Thunder. Yeah, it's in there too, but I'm really reading this for Hawkman and Flash.
Yeah.
To the point where like, I think it's only 6 issues later, Johnny Thunder's series is gone and Black Canary gets a feature in Flash Comics.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's like within 6 issues, I think is she makes a cover debut or something like that.
Wow.
And she gets her own feature
That's
in
unreal.
Flash Comics. The Alan Scott one, I think we've talked about before, where he had like a dog sidekick or something like that became so popular he briefly like replaced him.
Yes.
But no, Alan Scott eventually won that back. Yeah, other ones that where someone has upstaged the main character. That's actually kind of tough. Fuck. I mean, you can make the argument for Constantine. Swamp Thing's obviously got a following and shit like that, but like Constantine is like a cultural phenomenon. I'd say bigger than Swamp Thing.
Well, I mean, in the 80s, it just represented so much.
It's tough. They're comparable, but like Constantine's a strong contender for something like that. A character showing up in Swamp Thing who's so compelling that we're like, we actually kind of just want to only read him. Like, let's make Hellblazer.
I mean,
because Constantine features a lot in the subsequent issues, you know, and he's in Swamp Thing too. You know, he's there through Crisis. Swamp Thing 50 is where Constantine is sort of responsible for the death of Zatara. Yeah, I'd say that's a big one. I don't know that he wasn't the same because Swamp Thing didn't get canceled and then Constantine kept going.
I don't know if that's necessarily the situation. I think it could just be that they definitely like kind of stole the show.
Yeah.
Like a great example of somebody who definitely didn't take away from the other character, but definitely at least was comparable was Joker with Batman.
Well, sure. Yeah. I mean, you can. Yeah, that's a fair point. I'm trying to think if there's one in the modern age that really stands out where people were like, "Oh, who's this?" That's tough actually. But I think Constantine's probably my main answer for that one. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's go on to the next question. That's it. That's the last question. That was the last question. Look at that.
You know what time it is.
Fuck, I do. You prepared?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so we are going on to this week's Dial Dog. Obviously, if you're a first-time listener, this harkens back to the Dial H comics, which they've now brought back. Dial H for Hero, which means basically that if you find this random payphone and dial Hero into it, so a payphone is a thing.
Oh fuck!
Yeah, I know. Let's not go down
be here a while.
Yeah. If you dial on your cell phone that you find, that's
what's a phone call?
Yeah, fuck. Phone calling in general. Yeah. Yes, you dial Hero in or Evil into this payphone. You get turned into either a randomly generated hero or villain. Now, back when it originally came out, they were write-ins from fans into DC Comics, and they would get written in, and they would randomly create that terrible idea of a character for at least one issue.
So now it's our turn to make terrible ideas.
Yes, more than just this podcast. We expand upon this a terrible idea to create more. Like our children of bad ideas that will get spread out into the world. What is your... you know all about that. You got a kid.
That's not a bad idea. She's already better than I am.
Yeah. I think somehow.
Well, thank my wife.
Yeah.
So I think my character is called Mr. Diary.
Mr. Diary.
Mr. Diary, basically, if they make contact with you, they can dredge up like a painful or pleasant memory of yours and trap you in it. Like in like a sort of like psychic projection of a particular memory.
Yeah.
So they can use it to either get information or to keep you in like sort of a comatose state, just sort of out of the fight. Or there's like different ways to use it, but that's Mr. Diary.
Much like in the Lucifer TV series, people.
I was gonna say Luther could do that.
That'd be awesome. No, in Lucifer, when they go into hell, you have to be careful about what door you open because it'll be a really painful part of your past, and you can get stuck inside of it. That's season 2. Nice. I like that show. I'm still watching.
I can
tell. Mine is its name is Spritz.
Okay.
And it is the ability to turn into bubbles.
Okay. And have a lemon lime flavor that is not trademarked?
No, it's berry flavor.
Fuck that. I actually came up with one this week.
Its name is Western Family. No, it's spritz. Yeah, it can turn into bubbles. It can be either a large enough bubble to pick things up. It can
Right.
spread into many bubbles and go into different parts of places. And it's, yeah.
Okay.
And you can pop bubbles, but it exists as many bubbles. So unless the only way you can defeat it is turn it into one big bubble that you pop,
Right.
which would be very difficult.
Gotcha. Nice. So we've got Mr. Diary and Spritz.
Mr. Diary.
Before we wrap up,
Yeah.
because this is the last episode of April, I did want to mention that we're sort of we're participating in a bit of a podcast crossover. So there's a bunch of DC Comics podcasts that have done this for a couple of years. They do a thing called JL May, where they pick a series and sort of review different issues and sort of take it apart. So this year for JL May, they're doing Blackest Night. So there's a few different podcasts involved. I'm not going to be able to remember off the top of my head all of them, but some of them include the Coffee and Comics podcast, Fire and Water podcast, Lantern Cast, our friends over there, a bunch of other people.
Lantern Cats. Wonder which one they're doing.
Well, they're a bunch of the podcasts are doing single issues of the actual Blackest Night series, and then a bunch of other podcasts are doing some of the tie-ins. And so our contribution to that is we're going to be talking about the Booster Gold tie-in
Hell yeah.
issues.
Hell yeah.
Our episode will come out on May 15th, which will roughly put us in the reading order as it comes out through the month.
Perfect.
So yeah, that'll be our contribution to JL May, but we'll put some stuff up on Twitter about it and things like that, so you'll see it. But yeah, that's a thing that's coming this month. And actually, I think the first one starts on April 30th, and that'll be the first. It'll be the first issue of Blackest Night, is that one. So yeah, we're kind of excited to do a bit of a podcast crossover.
Yeah, absolutely. And to have to require no real work because it's in the format of our own podcast, which is great.
Well, easy way out.
That's how we do this. So we would love to know what type of dial doc characters you can come in.
That's right.
Up with. And all you have to use is the hashtag dialdoc and send those ideas to us through our social media platforms. But also ask questions about that the Booster Gold tie-in for.
Yeah, you can send those in advance. Like I said, that'll come out mid-May. But like anything that you've got for those, Booster Gold Blackest Night issues.
And our next issue is going to be.
I have it queued up, and we don't have to edit this out. I'm making this more difficult by talking.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I'm like, yeah, it really makes him.
Fuck. Our next issue. I wish I could just remember off the top of my head. Our next issue is going to be about sentient animals.
Ooh, I like that. That's a great idea. Yeah. That's cool. I like that. So if you want to send us questions for either that Blackest Night tie-in or sentient animals, or just to give us your dial doc, all you have to do is reach out to us through our various social media platforms, such as our Facebook,
Dr. DC Podcast,
our Twitter,
at Dr. DC,
Instagram,
Dr. DC Podcast,
email,
drdcpodcast@gmail.com,
Reddit,
r/Dr_DC.
All right. And not only can you talk to us online, but you can also read some articles that we've developed that we haven't done in a very long time. Or buy
Sorry,
our...
I'm busy parenting.
Yeah, I've got dogs. I get it.
You're right. We both have things going on.
Yeah, exactly. Or view our many wares, buy our merch on our website,
drdcpodcast.com or .ca.
And of course, you heard one at the beginning of this, but give us a review, preferably on iTunes. But I mean, at this point, we're desperate. We'll take a minute.
Wherever you listen.
Yes, give us a review. And if it's a place that's not iTunes, maybe send us a photo of it on Twitter, because we're not looking everywhere. And I only take notifications from iTunes, so
you may have already done it, but yeah, take a picture if you have and we haven't read it.
And guess what? If you've already left a iTunes review, now you've got a second chance. Go somewhere else, give us a review. Now you can give us, and now you can get
2 for 1.
That's right. and especially if you want that visual episode, now you can get us there even quicker.
Yeah, get us there. Get us there quick.
I'm so close.
Get us there quicker.
I'm on the edge.
That's not a problem I usually have.
No, it's usually like,
quicker.
Stop getting me there. Stop getting me there.
Slow down.
Bite my tongue. What did my gym teacher look like?
That wouldn't help. Oh, that would help.
Yeah.
The bite my tongue wouldn't help.
Meow.
Daddy made a kitty.
Oh, Daddy made a kitty. And of course, I mean, this is the first time we're mentioning it this episode, but we've got a Patreon account.
Yeah. Patreon.com/DrDC.
If you want to know about our Star Trek episode, it's only $5 a month. Kalis blesses this.
Today is a good day to buy a subscription.
Nice. All you have to do is go to patreon.com/.
Dr. DC.
That's right. $5 a month, and you get. We just did a Star Wars episode.
Yeah.
We're about to put out a Star Trek episode. We did a episode with Matthew Burnside from the This Is Rad podcast, all about video games.
We do a full extra episode every week that come out on Fridays.
That's right. Sometimes they're DC, sometimes they're not. You'll never know. So subscribe, baby. That's right, baby.
That made me so uncomfortable.
That's what makes me comfortable.
Oh no,
Daddy made a kitty.
that's a bad thing to get turned on by.
Yeah, it's got me in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I imagine.
Well, you hear those sirens? Please are coming.
We'll end the show.
Oh yeah, we'll be back on Friday because you're gonna subscribe to our Patreon. So yay!
We're so craving this episode.
Buy our merch, give us money.
Adios.
I'm so in debt. Ciao, ciao.
All the superheroes, they always fight for what is right. Live with danger and adventure, they are men of might.
This was a Brain Freeze podcast.